A quick game of winners and losers, just like we did after the draft. Who are the winners and losers on the Pacers roster from their free agency moves so far? Jay Rigdon from Awful Announcing and I dig into all of it on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today, the winners and losers from Pacers free agency, digging into all of it with Jay Rigdon from Awful Announcing. And of course, the caveat being, this is so far. We're 12 days-ish into free agency. Stuff could still change. There were moves made by the Pacers even later than this last year. The Donovan Mitchell trade happened like in September last year. Not saying they're done, but given what the Pacers have done so far, who on their team is standing better because of free agency, or is in a better position, who's in a worse position, and for what reasons? We actually had a lot of agreements with our lists, but we had one big one at the end that we very much disagreed on. I thought it was a very fun conversation. Let's just get right to it. We're 2 weeks into free agency. Stuff might not be done, but I want to take stock of the Pacers free agency by doing a project I did after the draft. The winners and the losers on the roster. Funnily enough, a big winner after the draft has become quite a big loser after the Pacers moves made in free agency. And joining me to do that, a man who understood the assignment and came with the same number of winners and losers as me, despite me not even saying so. It's Jay Rigdon from Awful Announcing. He's back for his bi-monthly, visit. Jay, that Summer League game that we just saw and we're not talking about was terrible.
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't plan the episode around reacting to that game. I would have been pretty disappointed to be on for that one. But that was...
Well, I said after the first Summer League game, I said, I'll probably do segments for the rest of the games. And someone said, you should do a full show for the second game because the good guys are playing. And then he did, and they played well. And I was like, maybe I should have. But this game is why I said segments, because I remember past Summer Leagues when I'm like talking about Simi Shatu for 2 minutes because that's who's left playing. It was Jarris did good stuff. The two-way guys were fine, but Chet Holmgren is good. And the game was not very good. Instead, we're talking about the winners and losers from free agency, who on the roster gained a lot from what the moves that were made, who lost a lot, whether that's minutes, opportunity, whatever. And I made a rule for myself that I am not just going to say Bruce Brown because he made several $1 million. I went with specific roster reasons for my decisions. Jay, would you like me to go good cop first or bad cop first?
Let's go bad cop first.
Okay,
let's shake it up.
I'll go with the loser first. This is probably the more important and direct hits anyway. My first loser and probably my biggest loser on the Pacers roster from free agency is Jordan Nwora. Jordan Nwora did not enjoy the Pacers moves, I would say, if I was a guessing man. Had a good close to last season, averaged over 13 points per game for the Pacers in his stint. Like, no doubt met the expectations they had for him. They got him for free, clearly proved to be a piece that is worth exploring. But drafting Jarris Walker, which was the right move, made a lot of sense for the Pacers. Trading for Obi Toppin, especially at that price, was the right move and made sense for the Pacers. And now, all of a sudden, Rick Carlisle said that there will be competition for the minutes, right, when asked about Obi. But it sure seems like the rotation will be Walker-Toppin. And so, if that is the case, either Nwora's playing the three, and then I have a lot of other questions, or he's not really playing at all. And either one of those changes, especially after his last season, would, to me, constitute him as a big loser.
Yeah, he's on my list, first of all, so we're in agreement so far here. I enjoyed watching him play at the end of the year. Like, he had a lot of like scoring flash in ways that the Pacers just didn't have from someone that size and at that position. And it was a fun little boost down the stretch to see him. And I think there was a way this offseason unfolded where I think he ends up feeling really good about where he is this year with a chance at it. But I think also from the Pacers perspective, like, he's also not a guy who you don't do something because you have him on the roster. Like, you don't not draft Jarris Walker or acquire someone like a talent like Obi Toppin or make other moves like that just because we have Jordan Nwora. Like, and that's not a slight to him. It's just kind of reality. It's kind of the way it is when you're at that level in the NBA. There's always going to be people coming in. And I do think he has a chance still to play. Like he's one injury away from the rotation probably because the stuff he brings to the table. So I'm not like writing him off as like a talent or as an asset for the Pacers this season, but like, yeah, he's definitely in a worse position now than he was before the offseason started.
Yeah, you said the key thing to me in there with him as a loser, and that's that while he's good-ish and young, he's not good enough or young enough that you're like making decisions based on his future. And the other part of that is his contract expires after the season, and he's an unrestricted free agent, unlike Toppin, who's restricted, and unlike Walker, who has several years of team control, right? So it's not even like you can guarantee team control for him for more than the next however many months. And so even if he's in their long-term plans, maybe, but they can't even extend him during the season because his contract was too short. So he's guaranteed to be an unrestricted free agent next summer. So yeah, if he has a great year, maybe they can bring him back. But it sure seems like, he's going to be a guy who is probably like the first in line for minutes every time anyone's hurt. And I will say for him specifically, it's not like he can't play the three. Like he can shoot. He's got perimeter skills on the offensive end. I think he moves around well enough on defense, and he's got enough size. It's not like embarrassing if Jordan Moore is playing the three for you off the bench. So, there's injuries to several positions that could lead to a snowball effect where he's still playing, and I think that matters. I think he's still an important depth piece for them, and he'll probably hit like assuming normal health, like 50 to 55, 60 games played still. But in terms of having the consistent opportunity he had last year, where he played 24 games and started 11 times and was playing over half the game, 24.6 minutes. I don't think there's any way that can happen unless there's like significant injury very early to one of Toppin or Walker.
Yeah, I think that would have to happen, and then he would have to come in and play really well from the start and kind of not give up the position. I do think the positive for him, I think, is that you can tell the way the Pacers are building this team around Halliburton and transition and pace, and like that he does fit that style well. So like they're not moving away from that for him. So if he does have a chance to like be like a plug and play replacement off the bench for them, like he still fits. You can kind of see why they still have him on the roster. For example, they didn't move him or get rid of him. So like, yeah, it makes sense in that way for him. And I think if he does get to play, he'll fit well there. But it is tough when you're in that position in a contract year to not really have a set role. Like that's a tough spot.
You had him on your losers list as well. Is it similar reasoning to that? Is there anything else you have for that?
It was pretty much just because he just kind of got pushed down by players who were, seemed to have a little more either potential upside or like investment in assets that the organization spent to acquire them. And that usually to me means that they're going to give those guys more of a shot up front. But that's generally it.
This is kind of big braining this too, but like if you're an actions speak louder than words kind of person, to get Jordan Nwora, they gave up nothing. Like they got assets with him and they gave up stuff to get Toppin, and they used significant draft capital on Walker. Like in terms of the investment to get the players that they would have at the four, Nwora was the least invested in. That was a complicated way of explaining what I'm trying to say. But so just from what they've invested in and what they have more stake in, it feels like Toppin and Walker are ahead of him there. It's funny because after the draft, I called him a quasi-winner, quasi-loser. Loser because there's no way he starts anymore with Jarris Walker on the team. But if you think he can play the three, maybe he's a winner. But then they got Bruce Brown, and now that has dried up as well. So including the draft too, free agency was not kind to Jordan Nwora. Give me something else from, you know what, you're the good cop now. Give me something from your winners list.
Yeah, so my winners list. This is maybe a little conventional. I went with Miles Turner as a big winner. Actually.
Also on my winners list. Good.
Excellent. Yeah. Like this is the first season in forever, really, like where the Pacers haven't been actively rumored to be shopping him in many ways. I'm sure that might come back at some point, but it's destined to probably. But they tried to replace him last year with DeAndre Ayton on a max offer sheet, which the Pacers never do as an organization. They were so reticent to do it that this year the offseason reporting has been maybe they don't want to do that anymore at all because they didn't like that experience. But they viewed that as a potential upgrade. And instead, he had an opportunity to play with Halliburton, had a great year as the unquestioned starter. They haven't brought anyone else in at his position. And I think, if anything, the players they brought in Toppin and Walker actually fit really well alongside him. That seems like something they were really trying to focus on and be able to balance the roster out that way. And I kind of think that is a really, really good, step for him. Plus he made a ton of money last year and probably feels really good about that still. So
If you were here for some Skip Bayless style commentary, you're not going to get it because it's like it's literally like you're reading off of my note sheet. So I'll actually the thing you said that I want to talk about, I haven't said on the show at all, was I think it was Zach Lowe who said that offer sheet thing that you referred to. I just think that was fascinating. Like, that the thing that was funny about the Ayton thing for the Pacers, like they gave up Dwayne Washington and had to stretch 3 guys, and maybe they made some of their moves with cap in mind, but like in general, they didn't like concede a ton. Their moves were good, but I think the thing that was weird is the Suns matched, or at least leaked their match, like immediately, right? Like 4 minutes. I don't know how fast they actually fill out the paperwork, but just like from an external PR perspective, it made them look dumb, even though they weren't dumb. Like they knew the chances they had to get him were the same either way, but the speed of it, it's just like, it's just weird. You know, it's just all weird. You got to make moves to maybe not even get the guy, and it could make you look weird. People have all these questions about something that didn't even actually happen. Like the restricted free agency, I think it's good. Like I have an unusual take on restricted free agency that I think it's good, even though the process itself totally sucks for the players. And I'm normally very pro players getting money, but that I feel like there still needs to be some sort of restricted free agency in some way. That was a tangent, unrelated. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. We've all had a time when we felt uncertain about where we're going in life. And for me, that was late last year. With my job, just wasn't sure what the next direction was for me. And sometimes we're faced with tough choices and the path forward isn't always clear. So whether you're dealing with decisions around your career, relationships, or anything else, therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate life so you can move forward with confidence and excitement. Trusting yourself to make decisions that align with your values is like anything. The more you practice it, the easier it gets. Therapy can be helpful for anyone to learn positive coping skills, set new boundaries, or empower you to be the best version of yourself. It's not just for those who've experienced major trauma. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. My big thing for Turner being a winner is that this style that he fits so well in, they leaned into more of, right? So even if it is just up-tempo early offense, he's still going to be the 5 who's initiating those possessions and setting the early screens. And guess what? Jarris Walker and Obi Toppin will not prevent him from being a roll guy or a pop guy. He'll still be awesome on the defensive end. And then from a basketball perspective, adding a guy like Walker, who could potentially ease the burden for him on the defensive end, or Toppin, who could be an inside-out combo on the offensive end. I just think the basketball side, they paired guys well with him that are helpful. He's not in trade rumors for the first time ever. That has to be so refreshing. Like he got to go to Italy and explore his fashion interests. And I forget where he went. Italy might be incorrect. He went somewhere in Europe to explore his fashion interests. Like he's not going to come to training camp and the first thing that we ask him is like, hey, what'd you think of this rumor and that? And it's just like, he just can enjoy playing. Like, I think everything to me points to him having a refreshing summer, and the team is now better suited around him. It won't be as reliant on him on defense. So, yeah, you already said all these things, but I agree. And he was the first guy I typed, and I was thinking of winners from their free agency.
Yep, he's the top of my list too. He won't be going on a podcast, hopefully, in like November, talking about like which teams he's ready to be traded to. Like that's not probably going to happen. It's like and adding like a guy like Bruce Brown too, like on top of that, like on the exterior defense, like that, like because Turner his defensive skill set is really impressive, but it's only going to let him do even more and emphasize that even more if he's not like the only line of defense, which I think happened to him a lot last year. He got pretty spread out and strong because he was the only guy capable of saving so many possessions. And that's like, if you can like prevent, I don't know, like just balancing out the defense, even just adding like 1 or 2 other defenders around him in the lineup that way, it opens him up to do so much more too that maybe is not as easy to see based on how we watched the entire Pacers team last year. Like, and I think I'm just excited for him. I'm glad he's in a good spot. Like he seems happier. Like that's a weird thing for me to say as a fan from here, but like just like his body language and demeanor, like he's not. The last few years have seen multiple storylines just constantly about that, and I got it too because he was kind of getting shopped actively all the time, and they tried to replace him last summer with DeAndre Ayton, and that's and the way that worked out, like you're right that one more note on that, like it was like 4 minutes later, it was like Woj tweet, and then 4 minutes later Woj tweet they're matching, and then like the Pacers also didn't even dump all the poison pill type stuff they could have in that offer sheet, so it was kind of like a half-hearted like attempt to like maybe get Ayton, but it also risked alienating Turner even more. I don't know, but it seems like however that went, it's worked out now for the Pacers, and I think definitely has worked out for Turner, and I think he's in a really good spot here. I'm excited to watch him play this year.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that, and we'll see where this shakes out for him. But they weren't linked to any centers. They didn't draft any center. Well, I guess they added Oscar Tshiebwe. It's not like that's gonna really change things for Miles Turner. And like, there's a credible lineup. This lineup might play like 10 minutes this season, and they'll suck on offense. But there's a Nembhard, Bruce Brown, Nesmith, Walker, Turner lineup that's like, oh, this is 5 good defenders, and that is like all guys who could be in their rotation, and they couldn't even sniff that last year. So that's good for Turner as well. I will pivot to my second winner. Allow me to be lazy, if you will, Jay. Not for the money reasons. Obviously, when you make $260 million, you are a big winner. That is not why I put Tyrese Haliburton on my list of winners, although obviously that makes him the biggest winner, literally, of the Pacers. So the fact that they leaned so much into his specific strengths, right? Rick made that very clear every time he was talking about Obi Toppin and Bruce Brown. Synergy says that he didn't say synergy. I think this is where it's from, though, that their effective field goal percentage in transition is top 2 in the league, and they'll both pair well with our really good transition guy. And we know that he never said this part, but they're very good at playing with random action, and those two guys can pair well with Haliburton in that way. And Obi, like with a lob threat, is just a fantastic fit with a great passer, and Bruce Brown can handle the ball a tiny bit and do those guard screens and be this awesome point of attack defender, and is awesome in transition. Like, he's a winner because the stuff he's the best at, the Pacers will now be better at. And I think that's going to make the team better next year.
Yeah, so he was also on my list. I was going to actually say
this is not good. This is not good for consumption.
No, it's if we're not embracing debate here at all, Tony. Like, but like I was actually going to preface it as well if I live with him by saying not for the money reasons too. Like, because that's great.
Well,
that's
easy
huge.
Because then the winners are just like Bruce Brown and Tyrese Haliburton.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And so, but no, and it's similar reasons to what you said. Like, they clearly, like, he has been elevated into like superstar franchise partner status. Like, he on his appearance with Paul George, he mentioned that he was sat on every draft prospect interview. And like, first of all, it's awesome that he wants to do that. Like, he's that into basketball and winning that he's like that committed to it. It's one of the reasons that I love Tyrese. But like, seeing him, they are clearly building with around his strengths and around him, and like in ways that are like quick and tangible. Like, the Pacers basically saw what they had last year and have pivoted now to going for that. And they're also, he wants to win too, right? Like, he wants to make the playoffs. That's been his stated goal. And the Pacers aren't like, they're not like sacrificing future flexibility and burning future assets to like, try to make some crazy leap up this year, but they're making winning moves to do that. Like, they're not like holding off and trying to like, string out one more year. Like, they clearly making him happy that way and showing that like they're committed to that and committed to him in all the ways that they have, both on and off the court. I don't know. You can't have a better offseason if you're a player, I wouldn't think.
Yeah. And the partnership part of it is fascinating just because, like, I've been intrigued by how I've thought about how if I were Tyrese Haliburton, I would feel right now, like knowing that I got paid and now I want to make the playoffs, but also the team has 6 years to build around me. Like, if you're him, you probably want them to hit the accelerator for sure. And they did. They got Bruce Brown. But also, it's like, that's a long time, right? Like, do you really want to push too fast and give up too much stuff? Or if you go for it too early, you don't have the right assets in the future. So I've thought about what it'd be like to be him, but I think they did a good job of towing both lines and keeping their assets in their powder dry for future summers too, which is also why he's a winner, because he could be a part of a team that adds some major talent in the future that also potentially plays well with him. But look, he's the first guy ever to average 20 and 10 and shoot 40% from 3. Like, that's super hard to do. And a guy who can score like that and shoot like that and pass like that, you build around him. You put the situation around him to make the team as good as possible. And I think that the Pacers recognize that right away. And that says a lot about how they feel about Haliburton and how Haliburton feels about what they need to do. And I think that leaning into his strengths was smart, and they did that. And I think he's going to look even better next year, both because his burden will be slightly smaller and because the guys he's passing to are better and better fits with him specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I don't know. You know that, Tony, like, we're on the exact same page there. Like, he seems really happy to be here too, which is and like vocally happy to be here, like vocally recruiting people. And like, he saw that, like, his team was willing to spend on both him and other players. And like, I think like, that also, I think getting his buy-in to the level that they've gotten it this year is like a really good sign, I think, for the Pacers, both short and long term. And for him, especially, like he gets to play the way he wants to play and seems to have a ton of freedom and is only getting like, more reassurance from the team that that's what they want to. And I think he's, I think it's a good mutual relationship, I think.
Your turn to be mean, Jay. Give me a loser.
All right. So the first loser I wrote down was Jalen Smith.
Okay. Good. This is good.
You're not okay. Kind of. All right.
Kind of. I cheated.
Yeah. So Jalen Smith last year was he took a deal to stay with the Pacers and was named the starting power forward. That went so well that the Pacers didn't do that the whole season and then spent the whole offseason acquiring other forwards to maybe start at the 4 either now or long term. Jalen Smith also now competed last year with Isaiah Jackson for backup 5 minutes behind Miles Turner. And that is a tough spot to be in. Like I know that Turner has, he doesn't play every game, but he plays a lot of games and when he's healthy. And I also feel like the way the Pacers have adjusted their like building for like an up-tempo transition based, like, fun running shot blocking 5 system, like that fits Isaiah Jackson to me more than it fits Jalen Smith. And I know both of them are like imperfect players still at this point. But the front office also spent a first-round pick on Isaiah Jackson 2 years ago. They just got rid of the other first-round pick they made that year, I believe, unless I'm confusing my years. But like, to me, that is tough for Jalen. Like it kind of seems like that experiment and one of the reasons they wanted to bring him back last year didn't really work out. And I think he's going to get more chances to play and more chances to, show that he can hit outside shots and he can maybe space the floor a little and do some different things in this setup. But like, I just think it's tough, like when Turner is still on the team and entrenched for another couple of years and, he's competing with a first-round pick and they're bringing in other players to start at the position that he was promised last year. That's just a tough sequence of events.
One more break here, guys, so I can talk to you about Birddogs, making the best shorts and pants out there. And Birddogs make you look good. They have their stretch khaki shorts that are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Their shorts do the same thing as Lululemon, but they fit way better. I have 2 pairs of the 8-inch inseam shorts, 7-inch, and they are fantastic. They fit way better than my regular shorts that are more stiff, and they have the restricting cotton. Birddogs instead fix that with a cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki but stretches, so you get a slimmer fit and don't have to sacrifice any movement. They use anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. I wore them around New York City for 2 days. Felt great all day. Didn't sweat at all. I would show you them right now, but they're with my laundry, so I can't. But you got to try them yourself, and you'll get a Birddogs tumbler if you do so. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA. Enter the promo code LockedOnNBA, and you get a free Yeti-style tumbler. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA, or the promo code LockedOnNBA, all one word at checkout for a free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take your Birddogs off. I can promise you that. So I cheated a little bit, and by a little bit, I mean a lot of it. My loser category that would contain Jalen Smith just says any backup center. All of the backup centers is actually the exact phrasing that I typed, and I put all of them because they're all still on the team, and like only one of them is going to play every game, presumably. So Tice I would include in this, and Jackson I would include in this. Like the end of last season when they were going back and forth with Smith and Jackson, like that's hard. That's not the best for development. And like Tice is good enough that he probably thinks he should play, and like he'll look good for Germany again this summer, and I'll go, maybe he should. And so, especially if they're trying to win now, which they've said they are. So one of them can't play every game. Likely 2 of them can't play every game. And the old solution to that was what you just said. Let's tell Jalen Smith he can start. Let's talk at the draft about how we think Isaiah Jackson can play the 4. Well, that's not happening anymore because they have 4s now. They've not too many. That's dumb to say, but they have lots of 4s now, right? So like, that can't happen. So they're one positional players for the Pacers, and they have 4 of them, and the best one is very obvious. So the second best one is going to be split up between 3 guys who all can make their own case for playing time. For Smith, it's that they re-signed him and gave him this player option and promised him a starting spot because they wanted him back so bad. And for Jackson, it's that they drafted him, and for Tice, it's that he's the best of those 3 guys at this present moment. I think some people could push back on that. I think he's the best of those guys. So they all kind of lose because they're especially because, in theory, Smith has a player option, but he could be a free agent next year. Jackson's getting close to the end of his deal. Tice could be a free agent next year. Like, they need to show that they're good if they're going to be free agents soon too. So their situations did not get any better. This may be something that will clear up. We're doing this less than 2 weeks into free agency, and like the Ayton thing happened more than 2 weeks in last year. Donovan Mitchell got traded in September last year, for Christ's sake. Like, a lot could change. But as of right now, I would say all of the backup centers, and especially whoever the Pacers feel like they want to invest more in, of Jackson and Smith. And if you, like you just said, think it's Jackson, then Smith is the much bigger loser, certainly.
Yep. And that is where I landed on it. I think Isaiah Jackson fits the up-tempo, push the pace, lob threat. And he still does so much work to do, obviously, for him as a player. But like, to me, and just having watched he and Smith play, and the fact that like they clearly don't view Isaiah Jackson as a potential 4 anymore. Like, he didn't play last year at the 4.
No.
So like if they, and so I don't know if that's like, so I think at this point, I think it's clear that it's just a straight up 5 thing. And I don't really know how that shakes out, but just to me and how like I see it, like I feel like factoring everything in, I feel like Jalen Smith is kind of in a tough spot here. But.
Yeah, well, I mean, that could be just like a trade deadline something, or I don't know how they figure that out. If they all even are on the team when the season starts, we'll see. But as of right now, I'd consider all of them losers in terms of how this shakes out. And maybe after the big stars do or don't get traded, there's more opportunity for 5 somewhere else or something. Who knows? But as of right now, I'd call them losers. I will do my last loser so we can close out the show on happy, fun winners. My last loser is actually 2 players, but it's because one of them is going to be the odd man out, and I don't know who yet. And I put McConnell or Nesmith. Here's why. And I think you can make a case for either one. So all of these players are for sure going to be in the rotation next year to me. I mean, I would be stunned if one of these guys was not playing. Halliburton, Nembhard, Mathurin, Bruce Brown, Buddy Hield, right? So that is 5 guys taking up your 2-3 spots, and Halliburton's going to play a lot at the 1. And so if you've got Mathurin and Brown as your 2-3 starting, then Hield's your guy off the bench. And if Nembhard's your other backup on the wing, then where's Aaron Nesmith's minutes? How he's going to get on the floor? And if you want to play Nembhard and Nesmith, then Nembhard goes to backup 1, and Nesmith can play the backup 3 spot, but then TJ McConnell's not playing. And so I think right now, given how I think those guys should or shouldn't be playing rotationally, one of those 2 guys is just the odd man out and would be likely the first sub in many situations, with them or Wara. But that's the thing. Similar thoughts there. Either one of them could be the first sub in theory. So I don't know which way they would lean on that. They both are solid players who had good seasons last year, and Rick Carlisle likes both of them. So I don't know how they would lean on that, but my gut kind of thinks Nesmith right now would be the odd guy out, and they would go with Nembhard off ball for now. But I don't know why my gut thinks that. Like, Nembhard just played very well playing point guard in Summer League, so good that they're already done with that. So I don't know how to feel about it. Jake Fisher just reported on TJ McConnell being linked to the Phoenix Suns. I'll talk about that on a show tomorrow, but I don't know which one of them it is, but one of them is going to be a loser because there's just not minutes for both of them right now.
Yeah, so Nesmith was my last loser.
Okay.
That tells you where I land on it. It's a similar thing, though. I think for me, it's a lot of the reasons you said. It's also the fact that he's up after this year, is he not?
Yes, he is.
Yes, and so like that's
extension eligible right this second. I don't think that's happening.
No, probably not. So he was fun to watch last year, and he brought a lot of things that the Pacers didn't have. The problem is that they also signed Bruce Brown, who does a lot of things that Aaron Nesmith sort of did or might be able to do, and he's now the highest paid player on the team. And I think so. To me, like looking at that, I agree with you on that balance. For me, like when I considered the roster and how it breaks down, like I think it makes a little more sense to me to have Nembhard off ball as like a secondary ball handler with McConnell versus having Nembhard like slotted in as like the solo backup 1 and then having Nesmith out there. Like, when I just think about how those groups have played together and how they want to run and play this year and everything that like TJ McConnell had a really good year last year.
Really good.
Like he was a very good, I could see why, the Suns and teams like that might be wanting to add him. I actually think he would be an asset to a lot of contending teams, both because of how he is off the court and what he does.
He would be perfect on Phoenix.
Yes, absolutely. He would be fantastic there. I love TJ. Like if he told the Pacers like, hey, I'm good going to Phoenix, like they're a really good team, like if you like whatever, like I would, I'm not going to begrudge him wanting to do that if that's how it breaks down. But like it's and so for me, like McConnell's also more established. He is, and it's tough. It is tough though. Those were the two guys that I was like kind of locked into as my last like thing, and I just think with the way that they've added wings and the way that like they value Nembhard and how he played last year, and Nesmith got a lot of his run last year as the 4, and he's not going to have that as an option anymore. And so like it's like, and I think that is telling to me. And so like I think he still has a role if he's on the team. Like I think he's still going to get to play. I think basically with his skill set and versatility, like if say he's like the 9th man, even like if anyone but Turner in the top and ahead of him gets hurt, he's coming in. Like he's able to play any of those roles. So like that's a good spot for him. But yeah, I think just based on how everything shook out, I think that is a tough thing for him to deal with.
I don't know. I don't know why my gut is leaning the way it is. But the other thing too, if they don't do anything else, right? Let's just pretend this is their 15-man roster. McConnell has now all of the veteran duties, right? Like Hill and Johnson are gone. And so he becomes even more integral in that way. And this is like a lazy thing to say. I'll admit that before I say it, but like it's easier to lead when you're playing, right? Like it just is. So I think that is a factor here as well. So that's just a gut thing, but I do think that there is potential for some shakeup. And the last thing I'll say, because we had the exact same losers, is if you think about what the Pacers could still do this offseason from a trade perspective, look no further than the names we just said, because they're going to be the guys who make the most sense for them to clear up logjams, right? So those would be the names that I would look the hardest at if you're external looking at the Pacers. Smile, winner's time. Close us out. I have a backup plan if you have the same answer as me. So give me your final winner of the Pacers free agency.
Well, my actual final winner was Isaiah Jackson for the reasons I laid out earlier as to why I feel like
did
he
not even sniff my list. I love that.
Yeah. So like I agree with you about the playing time logjam, but I think based on who they're looking at as backup 5 candidates, and based on the draft capital they invested in him, based on the run he got in summer league, they sent him out there to play, and I know he fouled like crazy and has a lot of things to work on. But I just think with the way that they've added players like Toppin and like Walker, who I think actually also fit alongside Isaiah in the same way that like they fit alongside Turner in some ways. Like I think freeing him up to kind of be like more of like a switching big who can reject shots at the rim out of nowhere with that athleticism and also run the floor and finish lobs and do all that high energy stuff. Like I could see that as more of like a disruptive like backup 5 to me than I see what Jalen Smith does, which is good. And like I agree that Tice is probably like in terms of like basketball IQ and like how he plays the game and his veteran knowledge, and like he's just a really solid veteran player. But like I also think they also, he was kind of just like a throw-in in the Brogdon trade. Like they didn't spend a first-round pick on 100%. Yeah, exactly. Like they didn't spend a first-round pick on Jalen Smith. Like they took a flyer on him because they needed talent and it was worth doing. They didn't have anyone else.
And that was also a salary dump trade.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And so like I just think that stuff matters to me. I think when you're doing it, and I think it's not the be-all end-all. Like, but I think it's a good tiebreaker. I think if you're trying to forecast who's going to get the shots. And I just think that for me, like I can just envision Isaiah Jackson. They still have to develop some guys, right? They're not winning the championship yet. They're not a contending team yet. Like they're still going to be developmentally focused in some ways. And I think if you're picking one of the recent draft picks, like, exclude Mather and Nembhard, Walker and Shepherd and those guys, like, but before that, like Isaiah's kind of like the only one like left really that this like, so I think that is worth noting. And I just think the way that his upside and how like if he develops into what he could be fits really well with Tyrese Halliburton and with what they're doing going forward. And I think that is why like they didn't get rid of him. First of all, that's a win for him. And I think this is a good spot for him. And I think the fact that they still seem to have some faith in him that way, I think that's a good thing for him too. So that's why he made my list.
Playoff bigs have to be really skilled, right? And so if Jalen Smith can shoot again, that would be huge for him being the guy. And I have long been of the opinion that Isaiah Jackson would be my pick for the backup 5 as the Pacers. I always grapple with this in my head, though, where it's just like, do I really think he's better? Or is it just like, ooh, athletic guy jump high, how cool?
Yeah.
But like, I always get back to the defensive part where, he fouls way too much. I know he works on it all the time. I can see it happen. I've heard it happen in many settings. but it hasn't been cleaned up yet. And that is certainly problematic for him. But like, there's more of a tunnel. I don't know why I said tunnel. There's more of a path for me to see like him having 5 minutes of Robert Williams like role at his best. This is not now. This would be way in the future. A Robert Williams like role than there is for me to see Jalen Smith be like that kind of guy, not a Robert Williams type guy, but like the best version of Jalen Smith's role, unless he's making the threes. And he's really gone the glass, and that matters. And his defense improved last year, and that matters. But he doesn't have as many of the skilly stuff that could matter in the postseason. So that's why I land Isaiah Jackson. But Jalen Smith certainly, like the when they got him the rest of that year, he certainly was the answer. Like 100% he was the answer. So honestly, maybe they like start the season with 5 games of each and see who it is and figure. I have no idea. I would lean Jackson like you, but I always struggle to figure out why I'm leaning that way, because sometimes it's just jump high, play defense. But if he's your choice, though, as the backup 5 as the Pacers, then he's definitely a winner because he's the backup 5.
Yeah, and I could be very wrong. I could be misreading all of this and be very wrong. And he was my last pick. It was the hardest. Like, he was the last one I came down to. Like, he was the last winner I chose. But I just think, based on like how I think it shook out and like what I see like the vision maybe being, I think they're going to give him a chance to see if he can develop some of those skills beyond his ridiculous athleticism to maybe make that work. And I'm not saying it will. I don't know. But I think that it's like I think he still came out ahead in this way.
So my third answer was Obi Toppin. And this is kind of like picking the guys for getting paid. It's dumb. And he didn't get paid, though, so I felt a little better about it. It's like he went from a situation where he couldn't play at all or couldn't get on the floor that much and was playing in the front court with like centers who can shoot, like Taj Gibson, Julius Randle, and Mitchell Robinson, to the Pacers where he's going to play. He fits much better, and he's playing next to centers who won't be around the rim. And so theoretically, all of those things should make him a little better. And I keep coming back to this thing. I keep saying it, and I got to give all the credit to Tom Lewis for getting this in my head, because it never clicked for me. Like, even looking at his minutes per game last year is misleading, because it was like a lot of spikes of really high minutes and then a ton of valleys of super low minutes. So it wasn't like he ever was like, he had a stretch of the season where he was kind of consistently around his minutes load, like November, December-ish. But with the Pacers, he would consistently be getting, presumably, about 25 minutes a game. And so the consistency, the fit, the situation with the other bigs on the team, it's just all great for him. And so I think he's a big winner, obviously, and getting out of a situation that just wasn't working for him. Of course, a fresh start could be good heading into free agency for him. And he's in a contract year where he kind of has to prove it if he wants to get like literally any contract next year right now. So that could be super motivating. So he was one of my 2 winners that I put. My flex winner, if you said Obi Toppin, was going to be Kendall Brown. That's super random. He's not even on the team. Why did I pick Kendall Brown? Because they picked a draft and stash guy at 47 who's not getting a 2-way. They still have an open 2-way, and he's had a good summer league. So I think he's got a very good inside track on the third 2-way spot. And had they done different things with their draft picks, that may not have been the case, or if he himself didn't play well in summer league, that might not have been the case. So obviously picking a 2-way player as a winner is not like the most fun thing to discuss. But Toppin and Brown were my 2 in case you picked Toppin for this one, because we had to have one difference, but you went with Isaiah Jackson, so that helped.
Yeah, I'm glad we had the one. Like, it's
5 out of 6 is still good.
It's a pretty good percentage. Toppin, clearly, I can't imagine many worse coaching fits for a player like that than Tibbs.
That's also true. And that's not to say Tibbs is a bad coach, but for his situation. Yeah,
you stole my next line there, Tony. Thank you.
Damn
Again,
it.
we're on the same page. Yeah, Tibbs is a good coach. It's just stylistically, the way he approaches things is a lot different than what Obi Toppin does strength-wise. And so it's just not a great pairing. And that was evidenced by the fact that they drafted him in the top 10 and never played him. So, and despite him having flashes, and like, I could see why that just wasn't going to work. Like, I think the change of scenery thing is overused in sports in general. Like, I think it sometimes, but sometimes I think it is a real thing. And it's not just like, oh, he just needed a fresh start. It's like, oh, he's going somewhere with concrete reasons why it's a better fit. And like, he has definitely landed in a spot where, like, even like, I know they even if he doesn't start over Jarris Walker, like, he still does things and brings things to the table that other players on the roster can't at this point. And like, he's in a place where a team wanted him. Like, they sent out, it's just 2 seconds, but they still wanted to bring him in. They wanted to give him a shot, and they wanted to pair him with a guy like Halliburton, who presumably also really approved of his addition. So he's going somewhere with somebody who wanted him with the ball. And that's a big deal. And so that's absolutely, I think, a good change for him. Even if it's just a 1-year thing and he has some flashes and balls out and gets a second contract somewhere because of that, that's still a really good change for him. Like, he wasn't going to get that opportunity with the Knicks, I don't think. And so if he's anywhere, that's a win. And because it's somewhere like the Pacers, which is a real potential win based on the fit and surroundings, that's a great spot for him. Go ahead. I was just going to say, and then Kendall Brown, like on the two ways, like, they have one point guard and one big, and so he slots right in there too. Like, it's not like he's competing with another two-way for like wing forward minutes too. In that scenario, he's kind of like the break glass in case of emergency wing forward. That's a good spot too.
Yeah, that even consider that part. That is good for him. To get the specifics on the top end thing I just mentioned. So the first 24 games of the season, he played 13 minutes or more in all of them but one, and in the one he played 12:58. So like he kind of played 13. Then he played 7:30. Then he missed the next 13 games with an injury. And then when he returned from injury, the next 24 games, he only played more than 12 minutes 5 times. 13 minutes 5 times, right? So his role just went totally away, and you can see that reflected in his numbers and the inconsistency. And then down the stretch, he gets a little more of a bump because they got their seating locked up. But mostly even between those, I just picked 24 because that's the start of his season number. But there was even more of a stretch where he didn't get over 13 minutes until March 27th, right? So like his role just totally deteriorated as the season went on last year. And so his minutes per game is misleading because then in the last 6 or so games of the season, he plays 33, 42, 27, 36. So it's a little all over the map. And he did start the season with the role and it went away. So I think more consistency will help there. Good. We had one different answer, even though you agreed with me on my answer.
It was a real contention.
This is bad TV, guys. You gotta come from both sides. You have to discuss both sides of the fence. I say hooey on that one.
A real contentious episode here, Tony. I know. I don't know if we're still friends after this. It's going to be tough after all this arguing, but I'll see what I can do.
The art of the take, baby. We were on it in this one. And the funny part is, now that we're 38 minutes in, the answer could change. They could make more moves, and all of a sudden we're like, those idiots. Yep, so we'll see if they have anything else to do. Tomorrow we will talk about one of those reported things, that TJ McConnell Phoenix thing I already said. We'll talk about their third summer league game. There were some fun things, despite the way we talked about it earlier. Jarris Walker came alive in the fourth quarter. Isaiah Wong looked his best game yet. Oscar Tshiebwe grabbed every miss off the rim, I think, in the whole game. So we'll talk about all that stuff and some new NBA rules. I got to give thoughts to all the new NBA stuff. I like the mid-season tournament, and I like one of the 2 new rules. Jay, thank you for the long time. Apologies. Where can people follow you and everything you have to say covering the world of sports?
Yeah, so on Twitter for now, as long as that exists, at Jay Rigdon 5. That's every social network anywhere I would be on. That's what I'm at. I do some still writing awful announcing on sports and sports media, and I also edit the Fried Egg newsletter. If any golf fans are out there as well, subscribe to that.
Golf is so interesting right now, and not for golf reasons. I can't look away from all that stuff. It's so it's in Congress right now, isn't it? Like,
yep.
I don't know if anyone actually cares about this, but
no, it's the end of the episode. Yeah, Senate subcommittee hearing this week. It was a giant fiasco. You can bring, when this comes to the NBA eventually, you can bring me back on for my golf expertise to talk about.
You'll be ready. You'll have seen the case go to the White House, and you'll be ready.
I'll have all the context.
You'll have all the context covered. That actually might be a thing that is coming sooner to the NBA than most people realize. Yes, tomorrow's show is said. Next week, recapping Summer League, general offseason topics before we head off into the sunset at the end of this month and into August, talking about the Pacers offseason. Thank you all a ton for listening. We'll see you soon.